The early morning light barely touched the narrow windows of cell 9. Inside, Marcus Reed sat motionless, shackled at the ankles, eyes fixed on the cracked ceiling above him. In 12 hours, he would be executed by lethal injection for a crime he swore he didn't commit. The world had stopped listening to Marcus a long time ago. Once a respected army veteran and security consultant, now just a number behind bars a convicted murderer in the eyes of the law. He hadn't cried when the verdict was read. He hadn't begged the judge or lashed out in anger. He had only said, "You have the wrong man." And he'd repeated those words for 5 long years. His appeals had been exhausted. Evidence had vanished. Witnesses had disappeared. Justice, it seemed, had no interest in second chances. There were no reporters chasing his story, no lawyers willing to risk their careers for an inmate on death row. Only silence. Only time slipping away, second by second. But Marcus held on to one memory that hadn't faded even as the cell walls closed in. Her name was Luna, a German shepherd with intelligent eyes and a heart full of loyalty. And in those final hours, as the state prepared the chamber, Marcus's final request wasn't for a priest or a final meal. It was simple: let me see my dog. Most final requests were predictable steak dinners, a phone call, maybe a favorite song played on loop. But Marcus's request caught everyone off guard. "A dog?" the guard had asked, raising an eyebrow. "Her name's Luna," Marcus replied quietly. "She was my family before all this." Warden Taylor, a stern woman known for following protocol to the letter, paused when she heard the request. "Animals aren't allowed inside state correctional facilities," she said flatly. But something in Marcus's tone gave her pause. Not desperation, not manipulation. Just longing. A soft human ache she couldn't quite ignore. After a long silence, she said, "If you can tell me exactly where Luna is, I'll see what I can do." Marcus looked up for the first time that morning, eyes heavy but alive. "She's with my sister. Been with her since the arrest." Warden Taylor gave a curt nod. "No promises, but I'll make the call." As her footsteps echoed away, Marcus whispered into the cold air, "Please, just one last time." The prison van pulled up just before noon. Emily stepped out with Luna at her side, the German shepherd older now, with white creeping along her muzzle. But her eyes were sharp, alert, sensing something was different. She tugged gently on the leash, sniffing the air as if chasing a scent that lived in memory. Inside, Marcus sat motionless in a chair, staring at the floor. He didn't turn until he heard the soft clicking of paws on concrete. He looked up. Luna froze in the doorway, then her whole body lit up. One bark, then she launched forward. Marcus dropped to his knees just in time to catch her. "Luna!" he breathed. She whined and licked his face wildly, tail wagging like she'd waited 5 years for this exact moment. Her paws scratched at his shoulders, as if trying to pull him closer. "You remember me?" Marcus whispered, voice shaking. "You didn't forget." He pressed his face into her fur, letting go of the walls he'd built to survive. For a few minutes, time stopped. There were no bars, no countdowns, no last meals, just the warmth of fur, the rhythm of breath, and the bond that not even steel or years could break. Luna leaned into him, steady and real, her presence louder than words. In that moment, Marcus didn't feel like a man about to die. He felt human, loved, whole again. While Marcus embraced Luna for what he believed might be the last time, retired Detective Paul Navarro sat in his quiet study, heart pounding. The Jackson case had been closed for years, but something had always bothered him. The shaky motive, the rushed timeline, the single fingerprint that never fully made sense. That morning, an old journalist contact had asked him a simple question. "Did you ever review the second forensic report?" Navarro blinked. "Second report?" He scoured his old hard drive, and there it was, a forgotten file. Forensics, Alt-Tab PDF. He opened it. Unmatched footprints. Traces of blood inconsistent with Marcus. Camera logs that contradicted trial testimony. Navarro felt sick. If this had been buried, it meant someone intentionally suppressed evidence. He picked up the phone and called a trusted contact at the governor's legal office. "I think we're about to kill an innocent man," he said, voice steady but urgent. "And I have the documentation to back it up." On the other end, a pause then. "Send it. Immediately." Navarro didn't wait. He attached the file, pressed send, and sat back, staring at the screen. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about his career or reputation. Only one thing mattered now. Was there still time to stop the execution? At Ironwood Prison, the air had shifted. Warden Taylor stood by the phone in her office, eyes locked on the clock. 8:41 a.m. Marcus was scheduled for lethal injection in just under 20 minutes. Then the phone rang. She snatched it up. "This is Warden Taylor." A sharp voice on the other end. "Governor's legal office. We just received credible evidence suggesting the Jackson case may involve suppressed forensic findings." Taylor's breath caught. "You're requesting a stay?" "Immediate, temporary 48-hour halt while we verify the documents. Governor's office will fax the order within minutes." Taylor didn't hesitate. "Understood." She hung up and turned to her deputy. "Stop the protocol. Get me to holding cell 4. Down the hall, Marcus sat on the edge of the bunk. Luna curled beside him, unaware that the clock ticking above them was no longer counting down to death but to life. The door buzzed open. Warden Taylor entered, face unreadable. "Mr. Reed," she said, voice softer than before, "you're not being executed today. The governor has issued a stay." Marcus stared at her, unable to speak. His hands trembled as he reached down to stroke Luna's fur. He didn't cry, not yet, but something in him finally breathed again. The news of the stay spread through the prison like wildfire. Some guards nodded solemnly. Others whispered, unsure what to believe. In the holding cell, Marcus sat motionless, Luna resting her head on his knee. The shock hadn't fully registered. For hours, he'd prepared to die. Now, he had 48 hours. It wasn't freedom, but it was breath, life, a chance. Back in the city, Detective Navarro met with legal counsel at the governor's office. Together, they pored over the forensic report he had uncovered. The evidence was damning not against Marcus, but against the case itself. Witness statements contradicted each other. Key pieces of data were missing from trial exhibits. And then came the kicker. A fingerprint belonging to a man named Daniel Klein, tied to past contract killings, had been found on a piece of evidence but never disclosed. By noon, a special task force was assembled to reopen the Jackson file. Navarro stood before them, no longer a quiet retiree, but a man on a mission. "We may have sent the wrong man to die," he said. "Let's make sure we don't let it happen again." Meanwhile, in his cell, Marcus whispered to Luna, maybe this time, someone's actually listening. He didn't know what would happen in 48 hours, but for the first time in years, hope felt real. The news of the stay spread through the prison like wildfire. Some guards nodded solemnly. Others whispered, unsure what to believe. In the holding cell, Marcus sat motionless, Luna resting her head on his knee. The shock hadn't fully registered. For hours, he'd prepared to die. Now, he had 48 hours. It wasn't freedom, but it was breath, life, a chance. Back in the city, Detective Navarro met with legal counsel at the governor's office. Together, they pored over the forensic report he had uncovered. The evidence was damning not against Marcus, but against the case itself. Witness statements contradicted each other. Key pieces of data were missing from trial exhibits. And then came the kicker. A fingerprint belonging to a man named Daniel Klein, tied to past contract killings, had been found on a piece of evidence but never disclosed. By noon, a special task force was assembled to reopen the Jackson file. Navarro stood before them, no longer a quiet retiree, but a man on a mission. "We may have sent the wrong man to die," he said. "Let's make sure we don't let it happen again." Meanwhile, in his cell, Marcus whispered to Luna, maybe this time, someone's actually listening. He didn't know what would happen in 48 hours, but for the first time in years, hope felt real.